There we go. Let's try that again. Ni hao. All right. I'm super excited to be here. My name is Travis Allen. I am a college student at Kennesaw State University, and I'm also the founder of an organization called iSchool Initiative. And I'm here representing a very unique perspective. I'm representing both American perspective and a student voice perspective. And my goal today is to challenge your thinking on education. I want to give you a different perspective and challenge your thoughts. So, my focus today, I want to tell you my story of becoming a lifelong learner and what that means to be a lifelong learner. And what I want you to do this morning is I want you to walk in my shoes. Imagine what it's like growing up in America surrounded by technology. I want you to go on a journey with me. And to tell you my story, when I was 17 years old, not too long ago, I was a high school student in Georgia in the United States. And for me, I loved mobile technology. I did everything on my smartphone. I read books, I used it as a graphing calculator, you name it. But I quickly realized that there was a huge divide between what I was experiencing in education versus what I was experiencing in my real world. There was a disconnect in the learning process for me as a student. And I want to play a quick video for you that shows where America ranked in education back when I was in high school. And if they could switch to the video.
Since the 1970s, U.S. schools have failed to keep pace with the rest of the world. Among 30 developed countries, we rank 25th in math and 21st in science. The top 5% of our students, our very best, rank 23rd out of 29 developed countries. In almost every category, we've fallen behind, except one. The same study looked at math skills and found in these 8 countries, the USA ranked last. But when researchers asked the students how they felt they had done, did I get good marks in mathematics? Kids from the USA ranked number 1 in confidence.
So this got me thinking, right? Obviously, there was a gap between my education and my real world. And as a student, I felt like the system was not preparing me for the real world that we were headed for. It was not preparing me for that. And so when I was 17 years old, I was taking notes in a history class one day on my smartphone. But the policy in my school was no cell phones allowed. And so my teacher took up my device, gave it to my principal called my parents, and I was in trouble that day. I went home frustrated. I went home and asked the question, why? And could there be a better way of learning? And so I decided to do the only thing I knew how to do as a 17-year-old. I turned to YouTube. And I spent 4 months building a video showing how mobile learning would transform education. Imagine if every student had an iPod. What could you do in the classroom? And I want to play the first minute of that video I created as a high school student.
17-year-old high school student at Whitewater High in Fayetteville, Georgia. I believe I have a solution to America's education problem, and I need your help. My high school is experiencing massive budget cuts, teachers are being let go, and classroom sizes are getting larger. Our public education system is broken, and it needs to be changed. I hope you will take a moment to watch this short PowerPoint presentation I have put together that answers the question, does technology belong in our classroom? You decide. Let me introduce you to the future of American education, the iSchool. The iSchool will be built on Apple's popular iTouch platform. The iTouch is a revolutionary handheld device that is capturing the imagination of people worldwide. With its easy-to-use touchscreen interface, it has set the standard for music, video, and third-party applications. With the right plan, this simple device could change the face of public education. The idea is simple. Imagine a schoolroom with no books, no paper, no expensive copy machine, and no more number 2 pencils. Impossible, you say?
I'm going to go ahead and stop it there. But I put this video out there as a high school student, not really thinking much of it. Really, it was just me sharing my voice, that I felt the system was not preparing me for the world we're headed for. And so I watched this video accidentally go viral. I actually found out not too long ago, Steve Jobs found the video and started promoting it through Apple Education. And so I accidentally fell into education technology. And it has been a roller coaster since then. To continue with my journey, I went to college the following year at Kennesaw State University. And that's when I decided to create a movement called iSchool Initiative. Now, at our core, we are a movement that's designed to completely revolutionize the way education is done around the world. We believe there's a better way. And we do this through 3 things. Number 1, we are here to empower students to have a voice in education. Here we are, the largest stakeholders, and yet we often have the smallest voice in education. We wanted to change that. Secondly, we realized that putting technology in the classroom in America didn't always fix everything. In fact, sometimes it created problems. And so we had this concept, this idea of students teaching teachers how to use technology in the classroom. And the last thing, we wanted to assist districts in their journey to a one-to-one or a bring-your-own-device initiative. So we started as a movement a couple years ago. This is where it began. And like I said, it's taken us to some amazing opportunities beyond. To continue with my story, though, in 2011, I entered into a Google Young Minds competition. This was an international competition hosted by Google that said if you're between the ages of 18 and 24, submit a 1-minute video showing how you're changing the world. I had the privilege of being selected as the winner that year and attended their Zeitgeist conference. At this conference, I met many people that I look up to, people like Larry Page, the CEO of Google, Sir Richard Branson from Virgin Mobile, Ariana Huffington, will.i.am from the Black Eyed Peas. But the most interesting person I met is on the top left there, and that is Peter, the creator of Angry Birds. Anybody here play Angry Birds? Yes? Well, you know what? I loved meeting Peter. He had this great message that I desperately needed to hear. Most people, they make this assumption about Peter, that he became this instant millionaire. Did you know that Angry Birds had 50 million downloads in the first 10 days it was on the App Store? So needless to say, most people have this assumption about him. But he told me something completely different. He told me that Angry Birds was the 58th game he ever produced. Now, that doesn't sound like overnight success to me. That sounds like he failed 57 times before finally becoming successful. And what I learned in this moment, and what I really needed to hear at this time in my life, is that failure is essential to growth. Those go hand in hand. But so often, young people have such a fear of failing that it stops them from going out and doing the impossible. And so we really I learned through this process that I have to be willing to fail in order to succeed. We've also had an opportunity to reach a very global audience, traveling all over the world in over 10 different countries, learning about other school systems. But I don't want to talk about them. I want to talk about what I experienced here in China. This is my first time in China. I had the privilege of arriving a few days early and going to schools to observe how education is done here. And my mind was blown. It was absolutely amazing what I saw. I went to the Chinsai Experimental Primary School, where I saw some of the most innovative learning happening in any school system I've seen in any country. And I'll tell you why. He showed me this novel. This is a 40-page comic strip novel that a student in his school made, an 11-year-old, made this book. To me, that was amazing, but here's why it really stood out to me. What this reminded me of is that the only limitation that our kids have are the limitations that we put on them every single day. As soon as we set a bar, they meet us at that bar and no higher. The potential of youth is exponential if we simply get out of the way and unlock their creativity. So I really enjoyed seeing what you had to offer here in China. Now, I want to share two last things about my story and what we're doing in America and how it might relate to your story. We wanted to change education. We wanted to change minds and change hearts about how learning is done in the classroom. And so we had this crazy idea to build these tour buses that open up to what we call the mobile classroom on wheels. The best way I can explain this, I don't know if this will translate. It's like Optimus Prime and the Magic School Bus have a baby. And that's basically what this is. Probably doesn't translate. But what we do is this opens up, like I said, twice its size, and we lock teachers and administrators inside the bus, and they have 30 minutes to use technology to figure their way out. I know you have escape rooms in China. How many of you here have done an escape room before, or know a little bit about them? A couple of you. Well, here's the thing. We love escape rooms. For those of you who don't know, escape rooms are these tiny rooms that they lock 10 people inside or so. An hour countdown starts, and the attendees have 1 hour to problem solve and figure their way out. And we loved these games because we think it role models what learning is all about. And so we wanted to take that concept and apply it to the classroom. So we created Escape the Bus. And like I said, what we do is we lock teachers and administrators inside. Inside, it looks like a spaceship, and they're a flight crew that has to put the ship back together before they all perish throughout this experience. Only about 25% of teams actually do so, and this has been super exciting. The reason that we created this, though, is because it role models what we think learning needs a whole lot more of, and that is this idea of be less helpful. It is our belief that in education, we become too helpful. We make it too easy for our students to succeed. They've become really good at knowing exactly what to do to get the grade and move on. But that's not learning. Learning is a struggle. Learning is sometimes uncomfortable. Ask this yourself, when is the last time you were uncomfortable? And that's probably the last time you were growing as a person. So we wanted to challenge people. We wanted learning to be fun. And we wanted to role model what be less helpful looks like in the classroom. The last piece I want to mention about my journey, my team and I launched a student club called SLED, which stands for Students Leading Education. And our goal was to create a mentorship program that really empowers students to take learning into their own hands and to be excited about their learning process. And the number one message that we give students through this program is to go out and change the world. You see, we believe the biggest insult you can give a young person is to tell them that they are the leaders of tomorrow, because you imply that they lack the ability or know-how to be our leaders of today. Now's the time to create change. And so we want to empower these students to go out and create change. And we actually have them lead the technology in their school district. These students that are part of this club, they're going and teaching their teachers how to use the technology. They're building lessons for the teachers on how to make it successful. Students are having a voice and are at the forefront of their own learning. That is what we need in today's society to build successful students. So I want to switch gears here, and I want to talk about the journey of lifelong learning. You see, it is my belief that students today must be lifelong learners. We all have to be lifelong learners in order to succeed. And there's an equation to successful lifelong learning. You have to have the right attitude, the right skills, and the right tools in order to become a lifelong learner. And let me break these down for you. Let's talk about attitude. The attitude that I want to see in every one of your kids here in China is a passion for learning, an indomitable spirit to learning, a desire to want to learn for the sake of learning. If this attitude is not instilled in our students, then we will not have success in the classroom. And it's my belief that what we have to do is stop teaching the how and teach the why. If we can inspire the why in our students, they'll figure out the how. It doesn't matter, they'll figure that out. So we need to ignite a passion in our students. Number two, the skill set. I believe the skill set of memorization is no longer as valuable in today's society. That skill set will only get you so far. The skill set that our students must have to be successful is the ability to find, filter, and apply. Can they find the right information, and can they create something amazing out of that information? That is what we want to see in education. But most importantly, we have to ask questions that can't be solved by Baidu. Because if all we do is ask questions that they can instantly solve on the internet, then we will be replaced by the internet. Artificial intelligence is replacing anything that is automated, anything that is based on information, they will be replacing. And so the question we have to ask ourselves is, how can we ask better questions? How can we get our students to think for themselves and become critical learners? We have to figure it out. So we have to instill the skill set of find, filter, and apply. Number 3, if I am a student and I have the attitude, I'm fired up, I'm ready, I'm excited to learn, and now I have the skill sets, it does me no good if I don't have access to the right tools. And that's where we've got to come in our schools and support. And by tools, I mean a mobile device. We have to get them access to a device. But it's really not about the device itself. It's about learning anywhere, anytime. We use 2 terms in education that I think are a little outdated. We use one-to-one, meaning you give students a device, or bring your own device, where they bring their own from home. I think these are outdated terms. I think a better a summary of where we want to go is a one-to-web experience. The goal is to get everyone connected at all times. How you do this, I don't care, as long as they're connected to the information age. So as we envision where we want to go, as we envision this journey of lifelong learning, sometimes there's an iceberg in our way. And this iceberg represents the challenges that we face both in America and in China when we look at moving forward and becoming lifelong learners. I want to talk about those challenges that we face. Number 1, technology. I want to talk about how technology is its own barrier sometimes to the learning process. Right now, many schools are deploying a lot of technology in America and here in China too. They're putting a lot of technology in the classroom, and they're not always seeing a lot of return on this technology. And what we're seeing, though, is this paradigm shift that's happening in education. Schools that are deploying technology, they start by becoming a device-centric learning experience. What I mean by this is that the learning is focused on the device and the technology, and that's not where we want to be. Where schools are starting to go towards is a content-centric learning experience, where now they're focused on the latest and greatest apps and textbooks on the device. It's all about the content, but that's not where we want to be either. Where I believe we must head is a student-centered learning experience. Technology needs to be like oxygen. It's invisible, it's ubiquitous. It's simply the tool that allows for great creation. That is what I want to see out of technology. It needs to focus on the students. Don't let the technology get in the way. Number 2, the mindset. If we talk about this change in the traditional ways that we teach, we have to change mindsets on when it comes to learning. And when we look at mindsets, we've identified 3 types of mindsets that we break it into. Type 1, we call your sailboats. And your sailboat mindset, they're flexible, they're maneuverable. Wherever the wind goes, wherever change goes, that's where they're going. They're moving forward fast, right? Your sailboat leaders when it comes to adopting change. Your type 2, we call your tugboats. And your tugboats are those that need a little tug, but they'll get there eventually. And your 3rd type of mindset when it comes to change are your anchors. And your anchors are those that are rooted in a fear of change. We have to move past the fear of change if we are going to have success in education. And what I want to reinforce is that your tugboats will tie themselves to whoever is louder in your community, your anchors or your sailboats. So we have to think about building culture and building mindset for this to work. The last piece I want to mention to you is how the student, the learner, gets in their own way in their journey to become a lifelong learner? Number one of the biggest barriers I've seen is that students in America, and I would argue here in China as well, don't actually know how to use technology productively. They know how to use it for video games, and they know how to use it for social media, but they don't always know how to use it as a productive device. It is imperative that we bring it to the classroom so we can teach, role model, and inspire our kids on how to use this technology productively. We can't forget that we need to teach our students to use technology. We can't assume that they know how to use it. Number 2. This one, I believe, struck me at my core, and I think it applies here in China too. For my generation, we have become a generation of great test takers. I am absolutely phenomenal at memorizing a bunch of information, taking a multiple choice test, and forgetting it the next day. I'm great at that. And when you take that away from me, I don't like it. Why? Because I'm really good at it. I'm really good at this system that society has created with testing. And I want to tell you a story, a personal story that really drives this home. One of my college professors was an amazing teacher. He did all the things we want to see an innovative teacher do. There was no multiple choice test at the end of the semester. It was all about your own learning and your own self-discovery of who you are. This was an amazing learning experience, and I loved this teacher. But I started asking my peers if they liked this teacher, and I realized I was the only one who liked this teacher. So I did some research on a website that we use in America called Rate My Professor. And this is a website that allows students to say whether a teacher is a good teacher or bad teacher. Now, here's what blew my mind. So I'll call him Professor Bob. He had one of the lowest scores I've seen on Rate My Professor. This site that all college students use, there are 3 criteria to this website. Number 1, easiness. The easier you are as a teacher, the better teacher you are. Clarity. The more clear you are to make it easier for me, the better teacher you are. And number 3, helpfulness. Another word for easiness. The point I want to make here is in America, what our kids have focused on and what they care about in a teacher is how easy the class is. And as long as that continues to be our mindset, we won't move forward in education. Now there's a 4th criteria, the chili pepper, which means your hotness. Apparently your attractiveness also affects your ability to be a good teacher. But last, I want to share a quote of what one of the students said about this teacher. Do not take this teacher if you value your time and like to know expectations. This teacher says he's not going to teach you. It is true, he won't teach you anything. You must teach yourself. So clearly the students are disconnected from what really matters in school. But I don't blame the kids, and here's why. Every time I ask the question, why do I have to go to school? Anytime I ask the question, I was always told the same response. You go to school to get good grades, to get into a good college, to get a good job. That is why you go to school. And then we wonder why our kids do the bare minimum to get the A in the class, when we told them that that's all that matters, is getting good grades. I think we need to rebrand this question. What if, when our kids asked us, why do we go to school? What if we said this? You go to school to get uncomfortable. You go to school to grow as a human being. You go to school to figure out how to change the world for the better. That is why you go to school. What kind of mentality are our kids going to have when they walk into your school building? How is that going to change the learning? The last piece I want to mention is that students sometimes have the lack of skill in find, filter, and apply. They're great at memorization, but they don't know how to find, filter, and apply information successfully. Now let me give you another story. My little brother, he loves to play a video game called Minecraft. Anybody here have kids who play Minecraft maybe? A couple of us? So here's the thing, Minecraft is this amazing game that has no instructions. It's all about be less helpful. You create your own destiny in this video game, which I absolutely love. Every time my little brother couldn't solve something in Minecraft, he immediately went to the internet and found the answer by himself. Nobody told him to do this. And yet that same day when he had math homework and he couldn't solve it, he went to my parents. My parents said, I don't know how to help you. And he just gave up. He's like, oh, I guess I can't learn today. And never thought to go to Khan Academy, which only has one channel, 2 million subscribers, and 500 million views. My point here is this. Our kids have the skill set to use the internet when it is best suited for them, but they don't always do it in their educational setting. How is your school going out empowering students every single day? How are you giving students a voice for change in your classroom? How are you empowering them to take ownership in their learning? And how are you teaching them these skill sets in order to be successful in this world that we are headed for? That is what we have to figure out. And I will close with this last thought. Along this journey, I've learned this. Work extremely hard, fail a ton, but always learn more. My greatest fear growing up since the time I can remember all the way up to college has always been public speaking. I was so deathly afraid of getting in front of people that I refused to present in school anytime I was asked. I refused to. I could not do it. And when I went to college, one of my mentors told me this: if you're not willing to change, you'll never change anything. And so he forced me in a room that could fit 150 people on my campus. He had me do a workshop called Top 10 Apps You Can't Graduate Without. And I had a total of 6 people show up to my workshop that day. 3 of them were my college roommates. And I completely choked. 10 minutes I had to walk off stage. I couldn't even present to 6 people. And I decided something that day, that I would get uncomfortable. I would challenge myself to grow. I would get up in front of people every chance I got to better myself and role model what it means to truly be a lifelong learner. But above all else, I learned to work extremely hard, fail a ton through the process, but always learn more. Thank you very much.